Hi, everyone. It's Barb Egan with Therapy Talks and then Switch Research. And on today's YouTube Live, we have a hot topic. It is all on couples communication, or just really, these are great tools that you can use, not just with your spouse, your partner, but really just great interpersonal communication tools. I mean, these are foundational to relationships because as humans, we are created for connection, and that sure is true. And we can work on some of our communication tips, because even though if we both speak English, for example, we probably speak different dialogues. And there's one really big popular, kind of a funny book. It was made into a game too, but just kind of portraying that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And there's some truth to that, of just different communication styles, not only between men and women, but actually between all of us, because we all have a little bit of different language that we bring in and life experience and what's going on in our heads. So on today's show, we're going to talk all about how to communicate so your partner will really hear you, because there's a few factors at play here, and I'm going to highlight maybe 3 to start. And we have a few really great resources to go through and good diagrams, because I'm visual. I need some visuals. Sometimes that works for me. We'll talk about some resources, some really great credible evidence-based research articles, therapists that I love, that I operate out of. So these are tried and true. That's a good part. But really, if we boil down communication, what's important is what we say, how we say it. So our tone of voice, our word choice. So what we say, how we say it, tone of voice, and when we say it. So let's say, your partner's going out the door and you just blah, 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 like you're so frustrated. That's probably not the best time. But maybe if you sit down together on the couch, like once the day has kind of settled, turn towards each other physically, your shoulders kind of looking at them, your eye contact, like maybe even put your hand on theirs and say, hey, you know what, can I talk to you about something's kind of been bothering me? That's probably going to go a lot better. And so we're going to go through some of those principles today. But first, I'd love to hear and just welcome everyone on today. It's great to see everybody and you interacting. This is the funnest part because it's really interactive. A lot of hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. And, I just want to invite you to write any questions that you might have in this, because we poll the audience. We ask you what you want to hear, and that's what we want to deliver. And so I love working with couples. I love working with individuals. This is probably one of my favorite things to work in because I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and this is real stuff. And so I'm really speaking not only professionally, but personally, and nobody's perfect. And communication is something probably most everyone struggles with, and no one's arrived. So pressure off. So I just want to, again, invite you, if you do have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. I can touch on those, and I'm going to pull up some resources throughout as we talk too. And so last week and the previous weeks, we've talked a little bit about identifying negative thinking, changing negative thinking. And this kind of got birthed out of that premise because, well, negative thoughts, they happen in here with you or, with us individually, but really they often get spurred or triggered between people, between two people, not just one. Yes, it can be isolated. It could be one. It could be my unique interpretation. Absolutely. We do a lot of individual counseling. Sometimes I just invite partners even to come in and say, you know what, we're really struggling through confidence or anxiety. Let's get in so we're all on the same page so that this person feels really supported, and we can give you some tools too to help them, because nobody has to do it alone. But negative self-talk or negative talk externally or internally usually happens because or between or is correlated to two people or more. And so whether I'm comparing myself to someone else, or again, we're going to look at this more partner relationship. So boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, anything, like everybody's welcome here. Learn about this because we're all in it together. And we all have a little bit different communication styles. So some of my favorite resources that we're going to look at is one, the Gottmans. So Dr. John and Julie Gottman, they are like the gurus of couple counseling. They have been doing it for 40, 45 years. They have a great research base out of Washington, out of big universities there. They're incredible. They have books, the 7 principles of making marriage work. They have podcasts, large ones. They're featured on quite a bit. Their one, Small Things Often, is one of my favorite. That's kind of the premise with couples work or even communication. It's small things often, not just really big grand gestures, or don't communicate most of the day because we're so busy. And then we just kind of communicate a little bit at night or when something's wrong. Then that's really not good. We're not going to have strong connection here. But if we do small things often, even like a small text message, hey, I'm thinking of you today. How are you doing? Wow, that's a small thing. But if we do it often, it's going to make strong connections. So their podcast, Small Things Often, is incredible. That's kind of their motto. And it's like 3 to 5 minutes. It is so doable. It's so practical. That's why I love them. So we're going to look at some things of the Gottmans on communication. We're also going to look at the love languages that came up last week as well. So in this negative self-talk, it could be, how do I find my boundary? How do I have assertive communication? How do I receive and give love? And so Dr. Gary Chapman kind of really made those popular. We're going to go through the table that I talked about last week of what are the 5 love languages. You can go online, you could do the free test, see what you are. It's really fun. It's great date night too. But this table, why I love it and why we're going to use that graphic later on is because you get to see what all of them are, which we all kind of bleed in and out through all of them, but they're different ways of giving and receiving love. So it's kind of the do's and don'ts. It's really a cheat sheet. You can keep it as a picture on your phone. You can go back to it. Nobody's perfect. So that's really good to have reminders. So we're going to have a lot of great resources, again, by really credible sources and therapists, and what we actually do in therapy. So I'm excited. And you guys are killing it on the communication already, because look at all the hello, so excited. Hi, hey, everyone. You're nailing it. Good job. Okay, so as you're just typing away, if there again are certain things that you really want to ask specifically, this is the fun part. It's really interactive. I'm going to start to pull up some resources. So just bear with me as I get my first one, and I'll pull it up and we'll kind of go over. Okay. So we're going to go over skills for active listening first. So communication, really, we think about what we say, but really we got to backtrack a little bit. It starts with, what are we doing? What are we hearing? And I like to even teach my little kids, like, you're not listening. You have to listen with your eyes too. It's not just a thing to sit here. Couples will come home and you're scrolling on your phone and you say, hey, how was your day? Good. How was yours? That's not good communication. Like, put this thing down. This is often the worst barrier between two people. Put it down, listen with your eyes and your ears, your body language too. Like, the nonverbals are huge. Some research says about 80% of communication is nonverbal, so our body language. So we're going to go over skills for active listening. So what is that? So again, this is based on Dr. John Gottman's Skills for Active Listening. There's lots out there, but I picked these 10 ones because, again, it's a really credible source. It's fantastic. So Dr. John Gottman's Skills for Active Listening. 1, focus on being interested, not interesting. This kind of goes along with the saying, seek to understand. And oh, wait, hold on. Now I got myself confused. See, communication, focus on being interested, not interesting. So basically that premise, sorry, I was going on a different quote. It got my brain spinning, but focus on being interested, not interesting. So take it in first, really hear what the other person's saying, maybe even try reflecting it before you can think what to respond. Like a lot of us, when we're talking to someone, it's like, oh, now I'm going to say this back to that. Well, turn that light bulb off. Let's be really present and listen to try to understand them rather than to respond. So focus on being interested, not interesting. Start by asking questions. So that's always really good. I know I'm in a good conversation when someone reciprocates a question of, wow, how did that make you feel? I'm just kidding, because that's in therapy a lot. That's the one we use. But anytime that it could be with a friend or with your partner, of when they ask, wow, then what? Or what happened next? What did you do? How did you feel? Were you upset? And it can be really simple things like the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, all of that. Of maybe if you don't know what to do, just start by asking a question, a genuine curiosity of, what did you do next? How are you doing with that? How are you? How did that make you feel? Really simple things. But if you have a few go-to of those, that's usually pretty good. Number 3, look for commonalities. So when we're listening, even if it's, let's say your partner is really into, the Stanley Cup hockey, and you're not into hockey, but try to find something in that you can find a commonality with. So it doesn't have to be the specific thing that you two really bond over, but try to find something in common together. And maybe it's not that sport that one partner likes to watch, or that place that the other one wants to go, but finding something common together in that conversation is really important. It's very connecting. So more often than not, and this is true with colleagues, with friends, with family, with any kind of relationship of two people talking or more, find something in common. There's always going to be something that you like in the other person. And I would actually add that onto this one as well, because you can love your partner, but you don't always like them. So if you can try to find something that you like about them each day and that you respect about them, or, oh, I like how they carried themselves this way, or I like how they were bold enough to speak up, or I like how that they cared so much, or that was so thoughtful. But find the commonality, and I'm going to add the like too in there. Number 4, tune in with all your attention. Now, this is really hard because you walk down the street and you see someone on your phone or on their phone, and they're walking and they're texting and they have ear pods in, and it's like, man, we are not present. we have a really hard time being present. And so imagine the gift that you can give to someone when you're fully attentive, active listening. Like you're actually showing them that they matter more than that phone or that email. And this is true for kids. Like as a parent and as a working mom, I try not to bring my computer or my work out of my office into my home, or it can be hard. I'm not perfect at it, but sometimes I even change clothes. Like that to me is really symbolic. But that can be true whether it's your kids, your romantic relationships, your friends, your family. Anything to add some boundary in is to really fully listen. So with your eyes, putting down technology, turning your body language even towards, like putting your shoulders facing them, really turning into. And what a gift that is, that you're giving that person you care about to be fully present. And it may not transform them, but most often when couples come in, it's easy to point the finger of, well, he does this or she does that or they do that. But being able to, a good rule of thumb is, if you want that person to change, the best thing you can do is model that behavioral change yourself consistently. And we're kind of creatures of co-regulation and habit, is that you're around someone long enough, you start to pick up their mannerisms, how they laugh, what they talk, their facial expressions, even how they behave. So if you're doing those kind of micro mirroring moments of active listening, of turning towards, your shoulders are there, maybe even like make eye contact with them, that's really vulnerable. That's really showing that you're listening. You add a question after they're saying something, or you just go, wow, yeah, that must have been hard, or I'm so proud of you, just something like that. Wow, that's such a connecting moment. You're so present, and that can be really beautiful. Number 5, communicate you are listening with a nod or a sound. So maybe it doesn't even merit, a verbal response of how did that make you feel, or what did you do next, or that would be scary, that would be hard, I'm so proud of you. Maybe you don't even know what to say. So I'm a therapist, I should know all this stuff. I'm also very extroverted and very chatty. My husband is very quiet. And so this is, we don't always get the verbal back. I like to think I give it, but he might not need it. For him, it's more like, okay, that you heard me. And so it's putting something down or making eye contact or turning towards, but it's the simple the nod. And even when he does that to me, because I know, and I, don't take it personally, he's a man of few words, unless you get him, talking about natural health or the Toronto Maple Leafs. But when he's nodding and I know that he's really attentive, like I can see his even body language, like come towards me more. And it just makes me feel so seen and cared for. And it could be the most, silly stuff that we're talking about, of kids drop off or pick up, or logistics or groceries, or it could be something really hard. And, I can see the empathy lines like come in all of our faces, oh, wow. Even if it's just something like that, that is really, really powerful. And again, we'll get to it later, but there's some people who are more extroverted and more introverted. There's more type A, type B, and to some extent opposites do attract. So if you're thinking, wow, my partner would never say those things back to me, well, that's okay. And we don't necessarily need to change them. Maybe you give them some tools of a few things to say, but look for that nod, look for the eye contact, look for the sound. Yeah. And honestly, that's a lot of therapy. It's a lot of talking, a whole lot more listening, but it's a lot of engagement through the nonverbals, through eye contact, through the nods, through just that connecting piece. And that's really huge. Number 6, paraphrase what the speaker says. So this is really important. And sometimes people, when they're starting out, get really caught up in their own head of, okay, they're saying this, so this is what I want to say back to them to make sure that they know I'm listening. And we can kind of, get ahead of ourselves, or we can get in our own head. It's kind of like riding a bike. At first, it's really hard. It's a little difficult. You may need training wheels. You may need extra help. But eventually you will get there. You'll be able to do it on your own. You won't need a coach or a therapist. You won't need books all the time, although we're always wanting to get better. And you won't need training wheels. But starting small, of, reflecting back. And what I encourage people is pick up one feeling word if you can. And feeling words, usually somebody's always like, oh, not that touchy feely stuff. But let me encourage you, it's the feeling wheel. Like, you look it up, it's by Dr. Gloria Wilcox. It's a great tool. There's some really beautiful ones on even Google, and save a photo, the feeling wheel, and you try to pick out a feeling and reflect that back and ask, because you may not know what they're feeling for sure, but you can ask. And that gives a window into your partner, which is really great. But a reflective listening, that really makes someone feel felt and feel seen and feel heard, that you're really paying attention to them. So reflecting back, basically summarize what they just said to you. Validate the speaker's emotions, number 7. Again, this is where I like to use that feeling wheel. It kind of combats both, or combines both of them, of, wow, that would be so hard. I'm so proud of you. That would be really heavy. That would be really scary. That would be really exciting and new. Wow, I'm so happy for you. So it can go from, hard emotions to more pleasant ones. So it doesn't always have to be negative. But again, that feeling wheel can usually really help identify what an emotion is. And it helps us emotionally connect with the other person, which makes us feel more connected too. Because as humans, we co-regulate our emotions. We can be happy with those who are happy, and also kind of be mournful or sad with those who are sad, but not take it on necessarily, like empathy. Number 8, maintain eye contact. This one is huge. And oftentimes we don't maintain eye contact with people because we're distracted, we're not focused, we're thinking about other things, we're intimidated. It makes us feel vulnerable, uncomfortable, anxious, any of those. But I dare you to make eye contact, because it is such a vulnerable exercise. In fact, in some couples retreats and workshops, what we do is we just, no verbals, no speaking, just eye contact and how to hold it. And some research by the Gottman suggests 6 seconds. If you can try and make eye contact for 6 seconds, that kind of goes for hugs or kisses or things like that too, of just that immense vulnerable connection. It's really powerful. So 6 seconds, try it. It will feel like 6 minutes, but I promise you can do it. And maybe even just start small with 2 seconds and work up. But just the premise is make eye contact. And I bet you'll see a demeanor shift. There's going to be an energy shift with that, because it is vulnerable, but it's also portraying and saying, you matter. I see you. And that's really important. Number 9, let the 60 of your own agenda. So again, most of us, we are hearing the other person speak and we're thinking about how that impacts me, or what I can say, or how I can relate, or this one time it happened to me. So I'm going to give a good example. The Gottmans call this a bid for connection, which means one partner is trying to connect. Now, they don't come out and say, I really feel disconnected and I want to connect with you. Maybe if your wife's a therapist, she'll use that words. But even then, oftentimes it's more like, wow, I just had such a long day. So that's a bid for connection. We don't often know that. Or, wow, the weather is so nice today. Again, a neutral topic, but it's a bid for connection. What does that mean? It means that I'm saying that to elicit a response from you to engage together, to connect. I'm trying to bid for a connection here. So let's say, I'll give an example that's really popular. One partner gets on, I've had such a long day. The other one's sitting on the couch scrolling on their phone. And, it's just doesn't look up, no eye contact, no really acknowledgement. That's a missed bid for connection. You're going to feel really not seen if you're the one. Let's just say that Sally and Sam is the one on the phone. Sally, I've had such a long day. Sam, silent Sam, let's call him silent Sam's just scrolling. So that's a lost bid for connection. Another really common one that a bit missed one looks like, Sally comes home. Oh, what a day. Sam, he's on his phone, or she's on her phone. Your day. Let me tell you about my day. Again, making it about themselves. That doesn't feel good either. Sally was just discarded and not validated and dismissed for her experience. That's a misbid for connection too. But now I'll show you what a successful bid for connection looks like. Okay, so Sally walks in. Oh, what a day. Sam's scrolling on his phone. Your day, you sound like you've had a hard day. See, he reflected a feeling. You sound like you had a hard day. Tell me about it. Turns shoulders towards and asks a question. So all of them, those bids for connections, they're like, 5 seconds. They're not long. And we have thousands, hundreds of those a day with people, especially our partners and our spouses. So if you can find a bid for connection and successfully make a few of those, that's going to really count a long way. So again, a bid for connection is usually saying something. Sometimes it's very poignant. Sometimes it's neutral, like, oh, the weather's nice today. Oh, yeah, it is. That's a bid for connection. That's successful. That bid for connection after being away from each other at work for most of the day, it's a connection ritual, really, really important to debrief your day together. Put down your phone, make eye contact, reflect something back. Oh, you sound like you had a hard day or a good day, or tell me about your day. What was a highlight? What was a low light? What's something you learned? What was exciting? What are you looking forward to tomorrow? Things like that. Those are successful bids for connection. And number 10, turn off the TV, which is a big one. I mean, and I'm not saying, chilling out after kids are in bed, especially if you have kids, and you just want to watch TV, or you've had a long day at work, like you were that example earlier, and you just want to watch TV. That's totally fine. I think let's just not make the TV the focus, and you two are here, not interacting at all. I think if you can, again, try to at times just interact around the TV show or what you like about that character, or laugh together, that can be really huge too. But when you need to have pretty important conversations or you're feeling disconnected, turn off the TV and just try to have you time. That can be pretty good. So again, I'll read the top 10 from Dr. John Gottman's Skills for Active Listening. Number 1, focus on being interested, not interesting. Number 2, start by asking questions. 3, look for commonalities. 4, tune in with all your attention. 5, communicate you're listening with a sound or a nod. 6, paraphrase what the speaker says, so kind of reflect back. 7, validate the speaker's emotions. Again, this is not where you want to dismiss or discredit or make it about you. You want to just really validate their experience and be there for them. It is so connecting. That one's probably my favorite. Number 8, maintain eye contact. That's a huge one. 9, let the 60 of your own agenda. 10, turn off the TV. And so hopefully some of those will resonate with you. I would love to hear in the chat box, do any really resonate with you? Are any really hard? Like, these are hard things. Active listening is actually quite hard because you're actively engaged, but you don't always look it. And so it does take some mental and emotional energy. Okay, so Paige says, I feel like in my communication, I can be passive aggressive because I don't like any sort of conflict. So I sometimes sideline the issue or act like things are okay. Awesome. Really good. So I like to use the positive sandwich here oftentimes, because passive aggressive, there's usually a fear that if I speak up, you might leave, or there might be disconnect between us, and I don't want that. And that's scary to me. So I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to shove my stuff down in order to appease you. Now that's not fair to you. And we have to break that mold. We have to be in a safe relationship where you can say and share how you feel, good and bad. And so, for example, if it's something is bothering you, but you don't like conflict, you're not alone. That's most people. And so oftentimes I like to do the positive sandwich, very elementary school, but it's, starting with a positive, putting something that's maybe upsetting you in the middle, and then ending with a positive. So it could look like something, let's say, something passive aggressive, the dishwasher. That's a huge one. The emotional load, the division of labor, those are huge things that most couples fight about. And so, for example, it's about the dishwasher, but it's not about the dishwasher. So it's about feeling disrespected or not seen or undervalued or not appreciated. And the list can go on and on. So if we could say, positive sandwich example with the dishwasher, one person feels like they're doing it a lot or most of the housework, the other really isn't. What that could look like is, hey, I know you've had a really hard day. I love how hard you work. I've been feeling really overwhelmed by the amount of housework on my plate right now. I would really appreciate it if you could, after dinner, unload the dishwasher for me or load the dishwasher for me. That would be huge. That would make such a difference. That would be such a huge help. Thank you so much. So kind of that positive. And then even in amidst that negative, it's not really a negative, it's a request. Be clear, be concise, be specific. Can you load the dishwasher after dinner for me? It would be a huge help. And if you saw, I also started by saying, instead of I'm frustrated or I'm angry at you or you never do anything, because that usually is how it blows up. It doesn't come out like that whatsoever. Usually that dishwasher scenario comes out like, oh, not again. I do it all the time. No, but if you take a step back, and again, this is where what you say, when you say it, and how you say it really matters, is if you're sitting together and you just kind of say, hey, you know what, something along those lines. But I usually encourage, use something like overwhelmed, or I'm hurt, or I'm worried about. Those words are not threatening. So your partner is not going to be on the attack then, or be on the defense, because they're like, oh, well, now I'm being attacked, if you come off really angry. But if you come off saying, I'm really overwhelmed, this would be such a huge help if you did this for me. I would be so appreciative. And then now, if you say that, you got to do it. So you got to see what they're doing, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not to your level yet, but that positive affirmation or appreciation, that respect will be huge. And so that's just a general example. I don't know what yours is, but I'll tell you that's when we use a lot and see a lot with couples, because that division of labor is a big one, and it's always morphing. I don't think there'll ever be a perfect balance of 50-50 or any of that. But again, instead of coming off angry and then one's on the defense or on the heels, if you can use words like I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then asking, if you can do anything for them too, because it's not often a one-way street, but it just takes the defense off of it. Great one. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you liked the bid for connection, Sarah. Good. Yes, I love that one. And it's so practical. I love the Gottmans for this reason. They're so practical. Let's see. Vanessa says, my mind runs all of the time. I hardly never fully focus on one thing at a time. The same goes in a relationship, anyway, I can change my perspective. Well, Vanessa, that's pretty insightful of you. I think, a lot of us, we have all those tabs open like a computer screen, and we got to exit out some of them. So I'm so old fashioned here, and not writing. I mean, you can write it out in the notes section of your phone or something like that. Again, the Gottmans even have an app, or there's some different couples apps or things. Mindshift is a big app I really like, but I just use, sticky notes or my journal or pen and paper, of getting all the stuff out that's swirling up here onto a piece of paper. And this is communication with yourself, or even with your partner. If you have to communicate logistics or an upcoming travel arrangement or kids schedules or meal planning or family get together or anything like that, is get it onto a piece of paper, put it on, your fridge or somewhere neutral, like a common space. So it's not just your thing, but it's your thing, plural, like it's our thing. And that can be huge. And that way, if your mind has all those tabs open, you can then try to just laser in on one at a time. And if it tries to put the spotlight on something else, just try to, that's okay. Our brain kind of does that, but then make sure that you just try to land it on one thing at a time. It will help you feel calmer. So then you can communicate more calmly too. I hope that makes sense and asks or answers a little bit. Okay, awesome. We are going to do a few of the do's and don'ts of communication now. So I'm going to pull that up. Or actually, hold up. Before we do that, we had the passive example. So the graphic changed the way we communicate. And on one side, there's passive. On one side, there's assertive. So if you guys can, we're going to pull that up so you guys can see it. And I'll just go through some of those. That's so great. Sorry, I missed that and did my positive sandwich example, but I think this diagram will really help. I do really well with diagrams, so I hope someone else may be too. Okay, so a passive way. This is where we push down some or all of our feelings. So we're stuffers. We just push it down, like something your partner did bothered you. Oh, yeah, he didn't unload the dishwasher again. And you start slowly, that resentment starts to just get pushed down. You don't say anything. Well, assertive communication could look like when we communicate assertively, we are expressing our needs and our partner knows exactly how we feel and what they're working with. Because they're not mind readers either. Because you could be festering about the dishwasher and all the stuff that's on your plate and stuff that work, what happened at work today, and the errands you have to run, and the meal prep and laundry and everything like that. And you can, it's so easy to snowball. But when we're assertive, it doesn't have to be disrespectful or aggressive. Assertive is not aggressive. That's a good distinction too, because I think we mix those up a lot. But assertive is just saying clearly what you need, and it helps your partner know what you're feeling and what you're thinking, what they're working with. Again, I like to do asking maybe for a specific, because even if you say, well, I ask for help and they still don't do anything, well, can we communicate that help clearly? Like if we could break it down really specifically and tangibly, we usually do pretty well with that. So passive communication, pushing things down, not communicating clearly or transparently, it's fine, but it's really not. What do you want to eat for dinner? I don't care, but you do care. Sending a message to ourselves unconsciously that how we feel is not important. That's really what's happening right now, is you're dismissing and not validating your own feelings and experience. So it's really then setting, if you can't be present with yourself and validate it, how can someone else be present with you and validate your feelings for you? Then we kind of get in that hierarchy or that rescuer and pursuer, and, some really not healthy dynamics there. So we have to be able to do that for ourselves too, so that we know what we deserve from a partner and when there's red flags. So again, passive communication, possibly creating resentment towards our partner. Like I said in that first one, that's usually a big sign. It just kind of festers. It's unprocessed, usually hurt that turns into resentment. That's why in the earlier example, I used a word like I'm feeling overwhelmed. Or if we can use words like overwhelmed, hurt, worried, that's usually at the core of it, what's festering that resentment. And then learning to value someone else's wants, needs, feelings over our own. This is often traced back to childhood, of what our family dynamic was. Again, just inherently believing my experience doesn't count, or my feelings don't matter as much as theirs, or if I speak up, they'll leave. And those fears really playing into it. It's really fear-based. And so that's some types of passive communication. And then this is what we'd like it to look like instead of assertive, not aggressive, but assertive communication. So again, when we communicate assertively, we're expressing our needs and our partner knows exactly how we feel and what they're working with. To tolerating the discomfort that may come with direct, clear, respectful communication of your wants and needs is worth it. So yeah, there might be discomfort, but yes, it is worth it. Just because there's discomfort does not mean it's bad and to abandon ship and to say, yep, I'm just going to stuff it and just, it's easier that way. No, it's just more familiar. And if we can learn to tolerate that discomfort for a little bit, that tension, it actually can be really growing, and it can really strengthen relationships more than ever. And last one, with practice, assertive communication makes each partner feel more seen, more heard, leaves less room for resentment, and increases mutual respect and emotional intimacy. So it actually directly pushes back against that fear of, if I speak out, they won't love me, or they may leave or think less of me. In fact, when we're able to be who we are, say who we are, be seen for who we are, the positive and negative, make our needs and our wants really known authentically, those are healthy relationships. Those are real relationships worth being in. And it really does increase that emotional intimacy. That's probably the biggest factor. Okay. So now I'm going to pull up, okay, after we talked about active listening, who wants to be a better listener? Probably most of us, because again, no one's perfect at this. And I'm going to just pull up the graphic of the do and don't of wanting to be a better listener. And I'd love to hear from you guys too. So I'm just going to take a pause before we jump into that. So as we go through this, feel free to type in questions after each one. I'll just come back and address some of them. So that's great. Okay. Oh, good. Vanessa, I did answer that earlier. Great. Shelby, I have a friend in a toxic relationship. I'm wondering how to navigate communication with them. Ooh, good. Okay. So I think before we even communicate something, we can be a listener. So this will be a good one for you. Paige, are there certain signs that you may be dating a narcissist? Yes, usually they make it all about themselves, really lacking empathy, very manipulative, that power hierarchy. And so I think I would recommend reading some things on Psychology Today, different credible sources, because if you're reading on like Cosmo magazine, that won't do it. But Psychology Today is usually a really good one. It's a really hot topic. And actually, we just did a podcast with a brilliant therapist who runs a huge clinic in San Diego, all on this. And usually it stems from growing up in a narcissistic home. Then they repeat those patterns later on in life. And she was just fantastic. So it's on our Therapy Talks podcast. So that could be a great little plug, but a really great resource more than anything. And Psychology Today on that topic. And Ian, sometimes you really just don't know what to have for dinner, though. Spoken like a true husband, Ian. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You really don't. Yeah. And usually that's when I use that example of the passive aggressive, it's like what an example in practical, really small terms could look like is, let's say your partner asks you, what do you want to have for dinner? Oh, I don't care, whatever you want. Or what do you want to watch tonight? Oh, I don't care, whatever you want. Oh, it doesn't matter to me. But let's say the dinner example, because you have to eat every day. You don't have to literally watch Netflix every day to survive. So we'll do the eating one. But what do you want to have for dinner every day? Oh, I don't care. But if you really do care and you know that left to their own accord, they're going to want meatballs and you're sick of it. You just had ground beef the night before. You just had steak the day before. You just had ribs the day before. You're like, we got to change this up a little bit. I want some chicken wings. Well, if there's even a little bit of that in you, try to, again, clearly and respectfully communicate that. So you could say something like, I really don't care too much, but we've had ground beef a lot lately, as long as it's not that could be a great starting point. But if sometimes it's not, if you don't know for sure what you want to clearly communicate, sometimes start with what you don't want to clearly communicate. And it just, again, helps your partner know what they're working with, because they're not a mind reader. So that kind of branches then, I guess, into listening too. So that's the external. Sometimes clearly communicate what you want, or sometimes what you don't want if you don't know what you want, if that makes sense. But want to be a better listener, here's some of the do's and don'ts. So again, my brain does really well of focusing on what to do and sometimes what not to do, because I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. And that happens. So we'll go over the don'ts first, maybe. So this isn't a great listener. We'll say that. So don't spend your time planning what you're going to say next or waiting for your turn to speak. We see this a lot. And I think we've all been in conversations, whether it's with our partners or friends or colleagues, with those types of people. And it's like, you just feel that energy. I think we've all been there, but yeah, let's not do that of just planning what you're going to say next. Or let's say the second one is try to fix things or offer unsolicited advice. Again, advice is something that, no, it's more often people just want to be heard, not fixed. And sometimes this is a good one that I do with couples. Oftentimes one partner does just want to vent or wants the other one to listen. And sometimes they do want their input and advice because they're the closest person in their life. So they really do value their wisdom and advice and want them to speak into it. So you have complete permission to designate that, of saying, I just want you to listen. I don't want you to fix it right now. You can say that. And you can mix it up. Or I do really want your advice. Please, would you tell me what you think? But be specific. Again, let them know if you just want them to listen or if you do want them to share advice. But again, when people jump into fix it mentality, that is like the worst experience ever. You feel so misheard or unheard. And it's really, really unfortunate. Also, don't split your focus between the speaker and something else. So again, this could be the TV, the game, the phone is the big one. Just put the phone down, put it on silent or airplane mode. If you're out on a date, like keep your phone, unless you want to take a picture or something, in your pocket or your purse. Just really show the other person that they're so worth it, that you're present with them. Don't try to finish or anticipate what the speaker is saying. This can be really hard if you're with each other a lot, or if you kind of know what they're going to say, but hold your tongue, take a deep breath, let it unfold. And this is then, instead of you finishing their sentence, you get to be patient and then practice reflecting it. That could be, channel that energy into something else. Also, don't take what the other person is saying so personally that you become defensive and unable to hear their side. We see this a lot in early couples, where the one will take it really personally. Any criticism will be seen as a personal attack, and they shut down, and it becomes this huge mountain out of a molehill. And I think being able to not take things so personally, it's pretty simple, but it's not easy. And so that often takes some time and some work doing. But again, they're usually not waking up in the morning, twisting their evil mustache, thinking, oh, how can I get you today? No, the person that you're with, your partner, is not out there trying to get you or hurt you, even if it comes off that way more often than not. And so knowing that, okay, how can I not take this so personally or be so defensive? And finally, don't completely shut down your own reaction to what the other person is saying. So don't try to take or protect them from, you're taking on their emotional load here. Is there an adult? They're responsible for them and how that makes them feel. You are responsible for you. And so feel what you're feeling, allow that to come through, but don't numb it out. Don't disconnect here. That could be really, really detrimental for you, for your relationship, and just being authentic to who you are. Okay. And then the do, this is a little bit more fun. So, okay, these are the things we can do. And again, I encourage diagrams because I like to keep them on my phone. I like those reminders and how I can improve. And if I can pick one a day or one every few days, that's a great thing to practice. There's a lot of opportunity to practice. And so, and I've been with my husband, we've been together 10 years. And these are things, nobody's arrived, nobody's perfect. And so it's really practicing these things on a daily, because you both grow, you change a lot. So do tune in to what the other person is saying. So again, tuning in, eye contact, shoulders, body language, maybe put your hand on theirs, the nodding, reflecting something back. Do stay curious, even if it's about the hockey game that's on, or cars, or this cooking show, or this new shop that opened. You don't have to be interested in that thing, but you can be interested in them. You don't have to be interested in the thing, but you can be interested in them. Do make understanding a goal. Try to put yourself in their shoes. How did they get here? Why does it matter to them? And really getting curious that way too, of really understanding it from their perspective, their life experience, their thoughts, their inner workings, their feelings, all of that, how much this matters to them. Do confirm what you heard with the speaker to see if you have it right, because that happens all the time too, is even though we're both speaking English, one is speaking, Southern, and one is speaking Canadian or whatever. But you want to confirm, this is what I'm hearing, or is this how you felt? Did I get it right? Is there anything you want to add? That sort of thing. You can open it into a dialogue, and it feels kind of uncomfortable or vulnerable, but the other person really appreciates it, because again, you don't go into know-it-all mode or fix-it mode or advice mode, but of, hey, I really do want to understand here. Help me understand. Do repair if you interrupt, get distracted, become defensive, or misunderstand. And I love this one because it gives a lot of grace that, let's say that you both are talking and kids run through. Like, the story of my life is there's a lot of stop and start conversations. And sometimes I'm not fully even mentally there, that I'm thinking about something else. And I have to really be honest and just say, you know what? I want to give you my full attention, and I can't right now. This thing is on my mind. Like one of our listeners wrote in the chat box, box earlier. I have all these things on my mind. That's what I do. That's why I have sticky notes and notebooks all the time is I write it down. And then once I do that, I take a deep breath. Okay, there it is. And I say when I'm going to deal with it. And I take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm sorry. I just really wanted to get that out of my head so I can focus on you because you really matter. And I want to give you the attention you deserve. And I don't think I can do that if I'm thinking about this, or if the TV's on, or if my phone is buzzing or binging, then I just turn it on silent. And I try to just keep my phone on the counter and not be around it, mostly when I'm, with my husband and my kids, because I never want them to think, oh, this thing is more important than these people in our family. So so you're going to interrupt. I'm just going to read it again because it's so good. Do repair if you interrupt, get distracted, become defensive, or misunderstand. And we all get defensive. Like nobody likes to be in an argument or conflict. And really with couples, I have couples come in and say, well, we never argue. And they think it's really good. To some extent, great. But no, it's more about conflict resolution than conflict. And so some couples I have, they are passionate fighters. Like it gets kind of loud in my office, and that's okay. We learn tools to navigate that, but their resolution is also really passionate and really pure and really real. And so they resolve it and they grow from it and they grow stronger. So it's not an absence of conflict. Actually, conflict's really, really connecting, really good if done in a correct way. Again, another couples therapist, it's a husband and wife team that I really like, Dr. Leslie Parrott, wrote a book called The Core of a Good Fight, and CORE stands for different acronyms there that we can do a whole other time. But you're going to repair, you're going to interrupt them. You're going to not get perfect listening down. You're going to interrupt. You're going to get defensive. You're going to get distracted. There was one study that said humans had I did it just now. A focus or a focal point of 7 seconds. That's less than a goldfish. So that means I could be wanting to say something or focus on something, but I think of something else within 7 seconds. So it's going to happen. Just repair it, own it, acknowledge it. Don't pretend it didn't happen always. Sometimes you just have to own it and say, you know what, I wasn't fully there and I want to give you the attention you deserve. Can you try again? I'm really sorry. Own it, apologize. There's nothing sexier than an apology. Ask clarifying questions that you're getting it right. Don't just assume based on your life experiences and how you would feel that they're feeling that way. Ask. That's where the feeling wheel and those emotion words can really be helpful too. Do inhabit the role of a passenger on the speaker's train of thought. So follow their journey at their pace. Again, I like to think of it kind of like a spotlight, like a roving spotlight, and eventually it's going to land on one thing or a general area or theme, but it might tell a lot of or shine on a lot of things. Oftentimes there's usually one of the partners tells a lot of stories and it seems like a lot of rabbit trails, but let them get there and let them land that spotlight. I know it can be frustrating, but for them, their verbal processing and for you to be present with them can be, a huge act of love and communicating. It's a great act of listening. It will definitely grow you. Okay. And last one, do be aware of how much time you spend talking in the conversation. So try not to dominate it. So I hope some of those do's and don'ts of wanting to be a better listener will resonate with you. I'd love to hear, are there any do's, whether on this list or that you have, that you like to practice, that's your go-to? Like, let's really focus on what can we do. I'm all about the action point. I love psychology. I love the neuroscience. I love the research behind it, but I'm a practical woman. I want to know what's my tangible, what's my next step? How can this fit in my real life? So what's your do, whether it's on this list or not, that you're going to practice to be a better listener? How? And some questions too. This is where questions can come back in, please. Yeah, Sarah says, great idea. Sometimes I think I don't care much, but maybe just used to letting them decide. Yeah, so trying to maybe go from that more passive of, oh, I don't care, to saying one thing. And oftentimes with couples, I suggest alternating date nights and doing what you want to do. And not in a selfish way, but so that your partner actually gets let into your world and your inner workings. Like maybe you really want to go to a bookstore and you guys get a coffee and you go around this bookstore and you look at books and you grab one. And that would be an invitation into your inner world. They may not love it, but again, it's not the activity, it's not the hockey game in the background or the car or any of that. It's the person. And so if you alternate date nights, then you get led into their world. Maybe they want to take you go-karting, and that's what really makes them come alive. And it's a huge part of them. They used to do it when they were kids. And then it spurs a whole other story and a connecting point. So that could be something really cool too. How can I get my partner to open up and talk to me more so I can use these tools? Oh, Sarah, great question. Great question. So again, I'm going to go back to that Small Things Often podcast because it's 3 to 5 minutes. And I usually suggest couples go through that together. And there's so many topics on there, but if you could pick 1 or 2 a week to listen to, whether it's together or on your commute or in your bathroom or whenever you have 3 to 5 minutes, and then talk about it and try to pick one thing that stood out to you and share it with the other. Well, there you're kind of bonding over this shared learning experience. You're doing something together, whether that's Small Things Often, or maybe it's a new hobby like tennis or golf or a new recipe that you do together. It's something objective that you both are working towards together. That can be huge. And again, basically the bottom line of if I want my partner to do this, I've got to do it. He'll mirror it or she'll mirror it. I've got to bring them to the table. I can't control what they're going to do, but I can do me. So what on some of these graphics, and I know we didn't get to all of them, but we can do more next time too. But let's just say the want to be a better listener one, or the 10 tips of active listening, pick 1 or 2 of those, write them down so it's holding you accountable. Share that with your partner, even of, hey, I really want to grow in these 2 things. Will you encourage me and hold me accountable in this? What would you want to grow in? So they're, again, an objective that you guys are working, towards together. So that can be really big, but really it's you're in control of you. If you want them to change, model that change. And again, make it collaborative. Nobody's perfect. Take the pressure off, have fun with it. Whether it's, those marriage series, there's a lot of really good YouTube ones or video series or podcasts. Again, Small Things Often is just so great because it's so short. It's so tangible. You can do it and talk about it together, practice it in real life together. And then again, sharing one of these graphics of just saying, hey, I listened to this. What do you think of it? I'm going to try to do these 2 things. I realized that I was, on the don't side, I tried to fix things or offer advice, and I'm going to really try to just listen actively instead. Will you encourage me in that? And then that's huge because you're not perfect at it. You're not pretending to be perfect at it, but you're saying, hey, I didn't do this part so well, which also gives your partner permission to not be perfect either and to have grace and own that. And that's something so beautiful, that humility too. So, all right. Does anyone have any questions as we're I'm just being mindful of the time. I know we're kind of towards our wrap up. So I just want to open it up. Any questions or comments about some of these principles that we're learning about? My partner is bringing their past trauma into our relationship, but doesn't see it and refuses to go to therapy. What do I do? That is a loaded one. That's hard. You can't really help someone if they don't want the help, but it does take time too. And so I think it's such a personal one there of how maybe that's coming up. Again, this is where I really like the Gottmans, or I like podcasts because you get to kind of hear other people's stories of similar stuff and what they did or what resonates, without getting into too much detail of what that trauma actually is, but it does tend to repeat. So if we can share something like that, an objective resource, or watch something together, or a graphic or an article, that can be kind of non-threatening. Again, well, maybe I know that we're almost done, but let's end on the love languages, because that's like a happy one, because you can always go back to that. Like if you're trying really hard to communicate and you're going with the love languages here, you can't necessarily go wrong with it, because it's not always, you're not doing this or a negative. This is really a marriage strengthener, a relationship strengthener that hopefully with enough connection. And because with trauma, we're afraid that if I work through this, or if I acknowledge it, you're going to leave, or I have to deal with it. And that's really scary. There's a lot of fear. But if we can really ensure this is a great atmosphere of love and a great environment of unconditional love here, maybe there would be some willingness to explore therapy together. I mean, you could always go to therapy on your own, absolutely. And maybe that person would join you, or have some tools that you can, again, model that change behavior that you want to see. But ideally it would be working together, not to bash or a negative or a wrong or a fixing, but a strengthening. That's often how I paint it, is this is a relationship strengthening experience. And I think every couple can benefit. So on that kind of, again, if you have questions, type in the chat box, but kind of to end on a high note, I do want to just pull up the love languages. So how to speak your spouse or your partner's love language. So basically, Dr. Gary Chapman, he identified, you can go on the website, you can take this free quiz. This can be a great bonding thing for you and your partner. Which love language? So words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. So words of affirmation, for example, what to do or how to communicate the do's and don'ts. Encourage, affirm, appreciate, empathize, listen actively. So what you could do is send an unexpected note, a text, a card, and just encourage them genuinely and often. Like, words fill someone's soul. Like, it's like gas in a gas tank. It's like just that emotional tank gets really full, and then they're going to be more apt to love you well and show up for you. So it's kind of like the cycle. In fact, Dr. Emerson Egertz, he coined the term the crazy cycle, and wrote a book called Love and Respect, that women really crave love and men really crave respect, and when you withhold one of those, then you get on this crazy cycle. And that's a whole other really good resource too. But so things to avoid with words of affirmation: non-constructive criticism, not recognizing or appreciating effort. So that could be things like silence, or not acknowledging, or criticism. So again, those bid for connections are really important there. Physical touch. So what do? It's the nonverbal. It's use your body language and touch to empathize love. It could be, put your hand on theirs, just walking past and brush it along their arm, a hug, a kiss, obviously other stuff too. That's what most of us think about. So, but a hug, a kiss, hold hands, show physical affection regularly, and make intimacy a thoughtful priority. And sometimes, you don't want to, but you got to schedule it in to make it happen. And so that's okay too. Things to avoid there are just, being closed off, not giving any physical sort of touch, or long stints without intimacy, receiving affection coldly, like, kind of like a fish, like you go in for a hug and it's just the stiff board. Receiving gifts, how to communicate that. Thoughtfulness, make your spouse a priority, speak purposefully. So it's a personal gift. It's not just how much it is. It's like very thoughtful. That would matter to them. And maybe what to avoid: forgetting, giving special occasions, or unenthusiastic gift receiving. So you get a gift and you're just not very happy. Oh, I already have this. Oh, shoot, like not very happy about it. Quality time. This is also often a very big one too. Uninterrupted and focused conversations. One-on-one time is crucial, not just groups or family time, things like that, but really quality time. So what can you do? Create special moments together. Take walks and do small things with your spouse. Weekend getaways are pretty big, but this could be grab a coffee and go to that bookstore, grab a coffee and go grocery shopping, or, doing that daily life together, one-on-one, that quality time. Try to make it special. Again, this is where you can add the eye contact, the physical touch, the words, anything. You can kind of intermix all of these. Things to avoid would be distractions when spending time together, or long stints without one-on-one time. So turn off the TV, put your phone away. And finally, acts of service. So use action phrases like "I'll help." They want to know you're with them and partnered with them. That's what people really want to hear. We see this a lot with the division of labor in homes, especially with kids. One parent really carrying a big load, but hearing the words "I'll help you" and then following through really do a long ways. Or it could look like doing chores together, make them breakfast in bed, or just more practical things of taking out the trash or the dishwasher, or actually going out of your way to help alleviate their daily workload. You feel really seen in these oftentimes of, hey, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed and struggling. I want to help carry this burden with you, or help carry this workload. And then finally, things to avoid with that one, making the requests of others a higher priority, lacking follow through on tasks big and small. So saying you're going to help and not really following through, that is not very good. So again, we all exhibit all of these love languages, but usually there's one or two that we really, it fills us up the most. Like we really feel seen and heard, and our love is really communicated. Our tank is full, our emotional tank is full by certain ones. So words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. And again, if you have not, or even if you have, maybe do it again to see if they've changed or if they stayed the same. Keep this table or a similar one app that you guys can go through it. And that can be, really, really helpful. Just a bonding experience, a good date night to do together. Well, thank you all for coming on. I hope some of those, I know there's a few graphics on there. You'll, take a screenshot, keep them on your phone. If you need to, go back and listen at any point. But I think the graphics are really good takeaways, because again, I'm all about how does this fit into your real life? What's the tangible? What's the takeaway? And let's try it. Don't get overwhelmed by all of them. I'm going to encourage just one. Pick one thing that resonated with you, whether it was on the love languages table, whether it was on the do's of don'ts of being a better listener, whether it was the top 10 active listening skills. Pick something, and you have a few resources or tools in your toolbox now to cycle through and go back through, and at least a talking point with your partner too. Maybe you'll even watch this together, or find another YouTube or show or podcast, because there's a lot of great resources out there. Again, we talked a lot about the Dr. John and Julie Gottman, Dr. Gary Chapman, who did the love languages. There's some really good books, really good videos, really good podcasts like Small Things Often that can be really practical and fit into your schedule. So thank you all for joining. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we wrap up? And if you don't, bring them next week too, because there's a whole lot of other stuff we can talk about. We can continue down this road. We can answer any questions, more communication wise, anything at all that you want to learn more about. All right. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you again next Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And make sure to tune in to tomorrow's YouTube Live. And we're really excited that you're listening with us. Thank you.